Thank you again for having me, invited me. Of course, this is an annual event and I look forward to it. I listened with earnest in the last sessions about vaccinations and lots of questions.
Sure.
I just would like to remind the team here, as when I make my presentation, that I am actually also a professor of pharmacology and a pharmacist by training and by license, actually, that I keep renewing. And I can assure you that I've been very involved also in these discussions about vaccination, the safety of vaccination, and the need for us to really pay close attention to how this is all moving forward. Of course, I've been fully vaccinated, being old enough to have that happen. I do expect that there will be a dramatic change in the way this country operates in the next 3 to 4 months because of the extent of vaccination. You can see a preview of this that's already happening in Israel right now. I think we should be very optimistic about the fall, and I'll get to a little bit of that in my presentation. This is the New Brunswick campus update, of course. I'm going to do a brief overview of just a backdrop for some of the senators that are from different campuses. Speaking a little bit to some of the relationships the chancellors are developing now under President Holloway in the first couple of slides. Talk a little bit about, of course, what we've all lived through the last 12 months, which has been just pretty dramatic and pretty amazing. Some of the excellence of the campus, and some of that has been taken away from me already with President Holloway. I'll go a little faster there, but it's all great news in that regard. Our beloved community, and looking forward to the future. So with that, although I don't really want to spend time on the university structure, in which we're one Middle States accredited university with 4 distributed units. And of course, you can recognize some of the characteristics of the different units on the slide. New Brunswick clearly consists of this land grant, the AAU campus, with a broad distinction in research and scholarship in the physical, environmental, and life sciences, with comprehensive offerings. But really, the theme that I think will come out going forward, and the thing that my chancellor colleagues, I think, want to emphasize, although they have their special missions in their schools, that I think that those units in schools are aware of, is that we really are looking to develop relationships and academic excellence across the whole university with many partnerships. And there's lots to be worked on with respect to how our students can share courses, can matriculate to different campuses, and can work really closely together to grow the university's stature and to really allow our students to be successful. Just a couple of points about that. We all know that the law schools between Newark and Camden have merged. There are many joint programs, pathways to 3+1 or 3+2 degrees from different campuses to our business school. The business school exists between New Brunswick and Newark, for example. And so there's these themes. While we have these 4 silos on this slide, these themes really are about one university, about developing academic excellence. This is something that chancellors are working on and talking to each other together, and really will be something that we bring through in some of our fundraising moving forward. I think people should know that New Brunswick, of course, is where all the students are, and that's obviously not true, but one can see here that we really have a large majority of the students, 43,000, over 43,000, including graduate students, many faculty and staff, whereas the unit RBHS doesn't have nearly as many students, very much faculty, clinical, sciences dense, and as well as the staff to go along with that. So the university has these different flavors, but again, we're seeking to be able to use those strengths at each area to sort of bolster the one university. Over the last 12 months, we've been challenged in many, many ways, and there's been good and not so great things happening. One of the really terrific things that I've been able to welcome are our newest deans. One is quote unquote permanent, Dr. Jason Geary, who came to us from the University of Maryland as the director of the School of Music there, and really has been an outstanding addition to the New Brunswick Dean Corps. Although Jason, I think, has essentially been a virtual dean, having joined us just like President Holloway during the pandemic, and really not been able to be too face-to-face with too many of his faculty and staff. Dr. Denise Hyen actually just recently decided to accept the interim dean for the Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology. She had been the Helen Cheney Endowed Chair in Alcohol Studies and the director of that program of alcohol and substance abuse. Denise took over as Provost Francine Conway accepted the provost role in New Brunswick. And Denise has really hit the ground running in that school and is a terrific addition. And of course, I think many of you know Dr. Laura Lawson, who is the interim executive dean of Ag and Natural Sciences in SEBS. And Laura has been there a long time, and it was the professor of landscape architecture and the dean of academic programs prior to Dean Goodman stepping down. But again, these deans and the rest of the New Brunswick Dean Corps have really been working with all of you. And I have to really extend compliments to all of the faculty, staff, and students on how we've been able to actually get through this last literally year now, from March to March, handling the global pandemic in the best way we can. We've reshaped the world as we know it at Rutgers. In the fall of 2020, we had less than 1,000 on-campus students. In New Brunswick, a campus that has 16,000 beds, actually. And of course, the effect of the lack of auxiliary revenues from housing and dining and some of our students skipping out a semester has really affected us. I'll get to a little bit more of that in a minute. In the spring 2021, we were able to have quite a few more students, but again, 2,300 students on campus is not nearly what we are normally used to, the 15,000, 16,000 students. We've, of course, adopted testing and contact tracing. Tony Calcado's mentioned this before. There's been a tremendous amount of great work on COVID being done here. Of course, the picture here of the late, unfortunately, Dr. Andrew Brooks, from Rutgers, New Brunswick Department of Genetics and the president of the Rutgers University's RUCDR, really developed, a groundbreaking 1 year ago, first FDA-approved COVID-19 saliva test that we use extensively at the university. Unfortunately, Dr. Brooks, we lost him about a month and a half ago due to an unrelated incident outside of COVID. A tremendous loss to the university and, quite frankly, to science. But really, along with the scientists in New Brunswick and across the university in all of our units, we were able to develop a Center for COVID-19 Response and Pandemic Preparedness. We participated in the J&J and Moderna vaccine clinical trials across the university. I was in the Johnson & Johnson trial myself, although I found out I was a placebo at one point and had to get the Moderna vaccine. And ongoing research related to all the modeling of the virus and really informing the state and helping the state really manage this crisis. Inside Rutgers, several of the chancellors got together with the senior vice president for research, and we developed an intramural research program, COVID-19 Research Awards. 22 projects were competitively selected from a diverse pool of over 150 applications. We probably funded this to the tune of $800,000 to $1 million among the different chancellor units, a very successful program that's ongoing, and we will continue to have it ongoing in the future. Of course, the higher education, the state of New Jersey and across the nation has benefited from many of the programs, that stimulus funding programs that have originated mostly in the federal government. This is a list of the 4 programs that are currently either have happened or are happening: CARES, GEAR, CRF, and any additional funding, and we expect more to come. Quite frankly, it's really been a tremendous boost to our students and to our institutions to be able to support our students in their times of need. Some of it has been used for direct financial aid to support students. Some of it has been used to enhance student services and to offset costs related to the pandemic. And we expect more of this funding to be used principally for students or for the cost of the pandemic. It's not something we can just throw to our bottom line. And so really the stimulus funding, while really tremendously important and helpful, does not address all of our revenue shortfalls. And I'll get to a couple of them in a second. We've developed a strong and resilient community this last year with more than 650 applications for emergency assistance processed, much money awarded COVID relief funding awarded from RUSA, actually, the Rutgers University Student Association. We've provided a lot of mental health services to our students, and of course, we can't have enough of those. And I'm really focused on making sure that we can keep and expand CAP services as much as we can moving forward. We know that food insecurity continues to be a major issue in the university. It's a major fundraising focus for the university. And we've been able to distribute and run food pantries successfully and had outreach to hundreds of students living off campus with both testing and PPE. Student Affairs has worked very hard to maintain the connection to students. The Scarlet-Eyed Interest communities have been virtual, and they've been working. Nearly 3,000 students have joined 5 communities. The virtual first-year experience program was something that was ramped up quickly, and it supports the student transition from high school. We did an experiment where some of the CARES funding was used to provide iPads to the freshmen at New Brunswick, supporting their onboarding the first year. The iPads were loaded with information about Rutgers and about the university. And I think it was, for the most part, a successful experiment. We've had, of course, a lot of virtual fall and spring involvement fairs, a virtual dance marathon that raised more than $1 million, not quite, more than I think many of us expected. It was a very successful virtual dance marathon and, of course, virtual lectures. As we move to the fall and become more face-to-face, I do expect that a lot of our success in some of these virtual experiences and opportunities to be broad will actually continue, even though they won't necessarily be required. And I think actually a lot of our experiences in the fall will be able to be very well supported by virtual technologies moving forward. You've heard a bit about what we're going to do in the fall. We've heard about the requirement for vaccinations, the strong urging of our faculty and staff to be vaccinated, and I can't urge that more strongly. The fact that the vaccinations are proving to be extremely safe and effective. And of course, the side thing that I think is not totally appreciated is that medical science is finding much better ways to treat COVID than certainly a year ago. There are antibody therapies, and there are new medications that are coming close to market, probably by the end of this year, that will actually be also orally active and effective for patients outside of the hospital. But returning to Rutgers, we've talked about in-person enrollments to reduce classroom seating capacities, modifying modes of instruction, et cetera. As was said earlier, I can tell you that close to 75% or 80% of classes in New Brunswick will have some face-to-face component or be fully face-to-face, actually. In terms of overall percentages, a recent update that I received recently, 72.9% of classes would be face-to-face and only 27% online. That varies by school. SAS was closer to 80% face-to-face, actually. And some schools have varied this somewhat. I really think that we're going to be opening up housing. While I don't expect necessarily that we will have full 100% housing, I am very hopeful that we will exceed a 75% housing rate at the university, that we will have a very vibrant campus, that the students will want to be on campus even if they take an online course, which certainly were offered at a much lower level before the pandemic. I really am looking forward to a much more robust and exciting fall, and quite frankly, a very safe fall season. And we aim at Rutgers to be the safest in the nation on how we will manage education in the fall. Some of our projections are a little concerning at the moment. We do expect that fall 2020 enrollment projections to be potentially down a little bit. Our applications have been up. We've admitted more than 24,000 students, but really it's converting those admitted students to deposits and to acceptances. It's the key right now. A little more than half of the students this year did not submit test scores where we are still test optimal through 2022. This is an ongoing experiment, but I think our enrollment teams think that we have very good ways to do surrogates for SAT testing, and we'll be looking at retention rates and the success of our students that we actually accept that don't submit test scores. We have a 34% increase in merit scholarship offers for underrepresented minority students, which is a very important aspect of what we're trying to move forward in a beloved community setting. We have a 69% increase in merit scholarships offered to first-generation students. And the Honors College, 20% of the offers have been made to underrepresented minority students, and 17% of those at the Honors College to first-generation students. Despite all of this, and despite all the hard work, I mean, the reality has been, of course, due to mostly revenue shrinkage in our auxiliary revenues, that the university with the contraction of COVID has really experienced a pretty dramatic reduction in its overall revenues over the last year, over $200 million in revenues. All right, that sounds like a shocking number, and certainly it is a shocking number from a university that's managed on a very tight margin overall over our $4.5 billion budget. Grants, contracts in the box there, tuition and fee revenues and other revenues are certainly up due to some of the federal funding. We take a hit in auxiliary revenues. This is the New Brunswick number for auxiliary revenues. And we have a net positive in those revenues of 40 million, but that doesn't really offset the 200 or so million in revenue losses that we're experiencing. That said, though, I have to compliment all of the faculty, staff, deans, administrators at the university in really being able to dramatically reduce our expenses this year. And a lot of that is made up for this delta in revenue loss. I don't have that, since the budgets are really a work in progress, you'll be hearing more about this. But there's been a really a tremendous effort given the furloughs that have been taken and ones that may still be taken, and the other reductions in travel and a variety of other areas that really have allowed us to be able to absorb this major punch of revenue loss, and with care and with careful management over the next 2 years should get us out of the crisis altogether. A big part of the loss, too, is the fact that international students, which are a significant part of tuition revenue, have really not been able to get to Rutgers or be enrolled at Rutgers. And we are down a good 25% of that enrollment moving forward. In terms of research funding, although the graph looks positive here, some of this red box that shows 2020 has an increase at 319 million for New Brunswick. Some of that is actually including the CARES pass-through money from the government. And in fact, our grants and grant revenues are actually down about 12% in New Brunswick this year. It's something that I'm a little concerned about. Our grant applications and number of awards are down. And it's something I think we really need to focus on academically and make sure that we actually can bring this back to a better place. In terms of campus excellence, there's many things to talk about. Some of it were already mentioned. Of course, New Brunswick continues to be a highly regarded unit of Rutgers University. We're a top 100 world university. We have 20 programs and schools in the nation's top 20. We service the entire university by our land grant mission, the only land grant university in New Jersey. And we have many social innovation projects created by our Honors College students. We have outreach in all throughout the state on the health side, in many different ways. And again, a focus of New Brunswick and one of President Holloway's focuses is really to drive academic excellence at the university while we've created a beloved community and while we get our message out to the state about how this university works to support the state of New Jersey. Some of the student highlights have been alluded to before, but this is worth showing a slide about. We have 2 Schwartzman Scholars this year. We have 2 Goldwater Scholars. We have a Marshall Scholar and a Truman Scholar and a Luce Scholar, 2 Luce Scholars. This is the kind of quality that of student body that Ivy League schools have and that are the top public universities in the country have. I give a lot of credit to Dr. Art Casiato, who's really worked tremendously hard with faculty, staff, and students about moving these students along in their pathway. And it's really been a tremendous success. And of course, as we all know, we have tremendous students at this university. We're also 12 years running one of the top producing Fulbright universities, as Dr. Holloway talked about. And again, I don't want to read through every name here, but we have 15 Rutgers Fulbright scholars for 2021 listed here, being involved in several different countries, both in Europe, Asia, and Africa. And again, a tremendous credit to the quality of our students and the kind of support and mentoring they get at Rutgers. In terms of faculty excellence, again, there were some highlights presented by President Holloway this morning. I just want to hit a few other ones that haven't been mentioned so far. We have some AAAS fellows in New Brunswick. Dr. Kenneth Irvine from the Waxman Institute, he's the interim director. And Dr. Shi Shuang, professor of management science and information at the business school. A National Academy of Science member, Greg Moore, who's one of the members of that outstanding Department of Physics and Astronomy that we have in New Brunswick. Of course, Stephanie Jemison won a Guggenheim Fellowship, assistant professor in Department of Arts and Design at the Mason Gross School of the Arts. Camilla Townsend, a distinguished professor of history, won the outstanding Cudhill History Prize and a Trailblazer Award from the NIH, and was provided to Professor Isgu, assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology. Again, it's really been a tremendous year for these kinds of awards. I think President Holloway and I never get tired of talking about how great our faculty are, and I just think it's very important that we recognize them and move this forward. In terms of international recognition, we also have fellows in the Ecological Society of America, Julie Lockwood from the Department of Ecology, the Woodrow Wilson Research Foundation Career Enhancement Award to Nicole Professor Burrows from the School of Arts and Sciences, Sloan Fellowships to Blakesley Burkhardt and Jedediah Pixley in the School of Arts and Sciences, a Fulbright Scholar Fellowship to Susie Kim, the School of Arts and Sciences, the national winner of the American Society for Horticultural Science, Professor Gohill, and SEBS, and Professor Rao and Mason Gross, a fellow of the National Endowment of the Humanities. Again, my congratulations to all of them and all of the work that they actually do at Rutgers. What we've actually tried to also recognize beyond these national and international awards is really create some award programs where we can do some peer sharing and peer awards. I'm very supported as the Chancellor of New Brunswick, along with Provost Mogi when he was provost here, and supported by Provost Conway moving forward, to continue to support a Chancellor's and Provost's Award for Faculty Excellence. This is a new series of awards that recognize and highlight the excellence of our outstanding faculty. And we had several award winners in 2020. One for the impacts in teaching that went to Professor Mussolino, Psychology, School of Arts and Sciences. A Chancellor's Award for Pioneering Research that went to Dr. Eddie Arnold from Chemistry in the School of Arts and Sciences. And a Chancellor's Award for Global Impacts to Alan Robach, Environmental Sciences, the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. These awards, as well as Provost Awards, will continue. I think it's a way for us to work together to recognize our faculty. I would like to extend it to staff as well, and we will be working on some Chancellor and awards for staff moving forward. President Holloway alluded a little bit to sports, and I know that athletics is somewhat controversial occasionally in the university. It isn't quite for me. I think it's an important front porch if it's done right at a university. Of course, for us to be in the academic peer group, the Big Ten, we play Big Ten sports. A lot of people would make fun of Rutgers as being sort of the bottom of the heap in the Big Ten in terms of their athletic prowess. This slide just shows national rankings for our teams in different Big Ten sports, not Big Ten rankings, but national rankings for our sports number 6 in men's lacrosse, number 9 in women's field hockey, 10 in rowing, 14 in wrestling, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we've heard about the men's and women's basketball team. That's really, that did an outstanding job this year. A lot of this brings attention to the university in very positive ways. And the thing that I like that's positive is that our student athletes are really good students. We had a record number of 59 Rutgers student athletes that were recognized by the Big Ten Conference. 84 of our athletes had a 4.0 in the fall semester, and 30 have a cumulative 4.0 GPA. All of our 22 teams have a cumulative and term GPA above 3. 318 athletes made the fall Dean's List. The men's basketball program had a record 11 Big Ten academic all-conference honorees, the most in the Big Ten. And of course, our program record 3 wrestlers earned All-American at the NCAA championships. That should have been on the last slide, but again, they're also excellent students as well. All right, I know we'll get to a few more questions. Let's talk a little bit about our beloved community, a concept that President Holloway wants to push forward, and I greatly agree that this is something that we all need to work on, and it is certainly an aspiration for New Brunswick. One of the ways we kicked this off was to have a coach survey. The Collaborative on Academic Careers in Higher Education that Rutgers partnered with the Harvard Graduate School of Education's collaborative in this space to conduct a faculty job satisfaction survey. We had a 34% response rate about a year ago. It will be repeated at some point. The results are available on the Coach Survey Data Portal. And again, there were many things that were shown there that we have a lot of work to do. A lot of the communication from the administration, a lot of the faculty dissatisfaction with many of the processes in how the university operates. Many of the things that have been brought out, quite frankly, in very open ways at these Senate meetings, became evident in this survey. It's something that the administration, that I take very seriously. We have a working group in New Brunswick composed of representatives across the campus that will be convened by Provost Conway who have reviewed results and will make recommendations this year in 3 key areas: faculty development mentoring, research support infrastructure, and strategic planning and communication. And the Coach Working Group will present the findings and invite feedback in 2 upcoming town hall events that I hope to attend as well, on Wednesday, March 31st and Wednesday, April 7th. And you can see the times there as moving forward. Again, a very important exercise, something that gives a sort of a tremendous amount of feedback to peers, as well as to the administration, as well as to our faculty themselves, and something that we need to work on. And I believe it's a very important and useful exercise. Compliments again to the development with the Mellon Grant funding to the creation of the Institute for the Study of Global and Racial Justice. While I'm presenting this in the New Brunswick slide, and these 2 faculty members, Professor Michelle Stevens and Professor Dunbar, come from New Brunswick, I believe this is a university-wide initiative, again, leveraging to the president's initiative on a beloved community. I'm very excited and I've spoken a few times already to Professor Stevens and Dunbar about how New Brunswick can help and be a partner here. We're very excited about how this can resonate throughout our whole faculty, staff, and students. And of course, it resonates also with the Senior Vice President of Equity, Anna Branch, who's working to support New Brunswick in the Division of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement in New Brunswick, but also in university-wide moving forward. We've worked a lot on building a beloved community. We've heard about The Scarlet and Black, Volume 3 has been released. Again, a very important academic endeavor by Rutgers and Rutgers Faculty in Arts and Sciences. We have had the 10-year anniversary of remembering the life and impact of Tyler Clemente, a student who tragically lost his life to suicide. due to invasion of privacy issue a decade ago, and we're really trying to create in his memory, symposia and outreach honoring LGBTQ individuals and how we can support students and really create the right environment for those students at this university, and making tremendous progress in addressing food insecurity. And we've had really tremendous donors helping to support this moving forward. I think enough has been said, but probably not quite enough about some confronting through the scarlet and black issue some of our ties to historically to slavery at this university and the founders of this university. There will be new historical markers placed at some of our locations around the campuses, the Hardenberg Hall, the Woodlawn Mansion on the Douglas campus, Freeland High School, and Livingston, that really talk about the historical in a historical context about some of the aspects of history here that where the university confronts its past, but confronts it in a way that I think that's educational and allows us to really contemplate how we need to change society and how society, quite frankly, is evolving, and how Rutgers is leading in that regard. And the next slide really talks a little bit about our goal to divest from fossil fuels. I don't think I need to give a lecture on fossil fuels. President Holloway spoke exquisitely about this earlier. We are going to see some new investments and really work towards alternative energy investments. There's lots to be done here, but as a scientist and somebody who's very concerned about the environment myself, I think we've certainly made the right choice in moving this initiative forward, despite some of the internal controversy. Just a couple more slides and I'll be finished and take questions. Moving toward the future, we just opened a world-class facility, the Gary and Barbara Rodkin Academic Success Center, again, focused on the academic success of our student athletes. This building right near the football stadium also with a lot of donor fundraising support, also supports several of the sports teams in the Big Ten. That allows them to be world-class in terms of their recruiting as well. It's really just one indication of the kind of infrastructure we can build at Rutgers that follows on to things that we've done over the past several years, like the new chemistry building. We also are working on a new one-stop building for allowing students to access all of the administrative needs they may have. The Big Idea program is something that really the foundation was spearheading, something that we had launched before President Holloway got here and before the pandemic. But there are several really important ideas here that leverage across the university and that we'll be working on, that came bottom up from our faculty and staff. One is, of course, the Dreams Fulfilled idea, which is really to raise money like the Scarlet Promise grants to allow students of need who have that gap in being able to access Rutgers due to the fact that their families don't have enough income to provide them with tuition or room and board support, and it extends beyond their Pell qualifications. And we're looking to really support that. And President Holloway has made an effort to create a $10 million endowment to move that forward. Minds and Machines is a big initiative to really look at data science in a big way, to expand our computer science, artificial intelligence. Several schools, the School of Communication Information, Arts and Sciences, business, of course, engineering will be involved in this as well. Earth 2100 reflects our interests and our expertise in climate change and really sustainability over time. The Rutgers Microbiome Project, which is done in conjunction with RBHS, really allows the expertise at Rutgers, which has been growing in many of our schools, to study the microbiome and the effects of the microbiome on medical care, as well as many of the diseases that we have that are chronic. It's actually in a really important scientific area that we will be hearing a lot more about in the next 20, 25 years. And of course, our COVID responsiveness. The last slide is really some of our opportunities here. Okay, the things that I'm focused on besides the budget: the safe reopening of campus, advancing our beloved community through some of those initiatives and others that we'll be hearing about from President's office. We have a very active diversity strategic planning exercise underway right now, working with the Senior Vice President for Equity, Anna Branch, and many of our schools, and many of you, of course, are involved in these processes. Academic and capital planning, although this has been happening in fits and starts over the last decade, we really are looking again at the New Brunswick campuses writ large, especially, for example, the Cook-Douglas campus, which really has been sort of, I'll say, neglected with respect to how we've been paying attention to the student dormitory and living conditions over there, as well as some of the academic buildings over there. And I'm working closely with the deans involved in the Douglas Cook campus to really see what we can do. But this is not just that campus. Academic and capital planning is occurring across the university. We want to enhance our reputation. This is something the faculty are really good at, and of course, fundraising for big ideas.